What's up, everybody? I'm Finn McKenty. This is the Punk Rock MBA. Today, I wanted to talk about this infographic, report, article, whatever that's been making the rounds. This new report that says artists only get 12% of the money from the music industry. Let me read you a little bit about what they had to say over at Metal Injection. Artists only see 12% of the music industry's $43 billion revenue. Streaming services have not been kind to artists, and unfortunately, they're by far the biggest player in the industry. Blah, 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 blah. According to a lengthy study published by Citigroup, the music industry brought in a whopping $43 billion in total. Of that $43 billion, a very not whopping 12% of it went to artists. For those disinclined to do math, that's $5.1 billion split among all artists. The report goes on to say that a lot of that $43 billion total goes to middlemen like radio, online platforms, and record labels. This happens every couple months, every year. One of these reports comes out that says this is how much streaming services pay or whatever, and everyone gets up in arms and they say, oh my God, artists are getting screwed, and they get on Facebook to fucking be indignant and outraged. So I wanted to unpack this a little bit and call bullshit on this. Like, nobody is putting a gun to your head and forcing you to work with any streaming service, with any manager, with any label, with any radio station, none of that. So enough with this entitled bullshit. Now, I get it. I understand why this is frustrating, but here's the thing. If you want 100% of the profits in any business, you have to do 100% of the work, and you have to take on 100% of the risk. So part of the reason why artists are only getting 12% is because they outsource a lot of the stuff that they either can't or don't want to do. For example, labels, they do things like they pay for the recording, they figure out manufacturing. If you're doing physical product, they coordinate the distribution, they do the marketing, they do a lot of stuff for you. Now, all the tools are there for you to do this on your own. You can choose to work with a label, or you can choose to do it yourself. It has never been a better time for you to be a DIY musician or creator of any kind. You can produce your music at home or at a studio for cheaper and easier than ever. Like, there's absolutely no reason why you can't make a pro quality recording in a home studio. Between social media, Bandcamp, Spotify, SoundCloud, there's all these different ways of pushing your shit out. You can even sell it directly yourself through Shopify if you want. There's nothing stopping you from doing it yourself. So if you work with a label, that's a choice. You're saying, I don't want to take on the risk of paying for this recording, and I don't want to deal with the hassle of distributing it and paying for the marketing and all that stuff. I want you guys to worry about that. I just want to focus on my art. Okay, fair enough. But understand that if you're asking people to do that work for you, they're going to take a cut, right? That's the way the world works. They should get paid for their work, right? And it's the same thing with merch, right? Like, do you really want to go through the hassle of finding your own vendor, of finding your own designer, of negotiating the agreements with all those, of paying for the inventory up front, of fulfilling and packing those orders, of dealing with the customer service, of reordering sizes when they run out, of doing the taxes? Do you want to do all that stuff? If you do, great. There's nothing stopping you. Again, you can put up a Shopify storefront right now. You can do print on demand. I mean, there's all these tools available if you want to do it. If you don't want to do it, fair enough. You can work with a merch company or somebody else, but again, they're going to take a piece of the action. Like I said earlier, if you want 100% of the profits, you got to do 100% of the work. The second thing is you're also going to have to take on 100% of the risk. Risk meaning investing money in something that may or may not pay off. So in the case of a label, they're investing in the production of the album, of the marketing of the album. They're paying for all the people who are working on this team on this thing. So they are taking on the risk. If the album flops, they lose their ass, you don't. Let's talk about like Spotify. This seems to be the thing that a lot of people are really upset about. They think that these streaming services should pay more to the artists. Well, let's look at that. Spotify and SoundCloud both lose hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars a year. They've invested a tremendous amount of money in building these platforms. So they've taken on all the risk. If Spotify goes under tomorrow, you don't lose anything. If your music is hosted on Spotify, you're not out anything. Their investors are going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. They took on the risk of building this platform. So of course, if they've invested hundreds of millions of dollars in building this platform, same with SoundCloud, you're going to have to give them a piece of the action if you want to use this platform that they have built. And if you don't think that that deal is fair, well, you are free to either walk away or negotiate. And that brings me to my next point, which is negotiating. A lot of musicians, unfortunately, are not very good negotiators. Negotiating meaning that when somebody offers you a contract, you don't have to just take it and sign it. You negotiate that. So if a label or a merch company or whoever makes you an offer for an advance of $10,000, you don't have to take that. Let's say you want $25,000. Well, you have to persuade them that you are worth $25,000. Just the same as with my job, I have to persuade the boss and my business partners that they should pay me X amount of dollars instead of Y amount of dollars. It's on me to negotiate a deal, persuade everybody that I'm worth what I think that I'm worth. And unfortunately, like I said, a lot of musicians aren't very good negotiators. Negotiating is just not really a thing that people ever talk about in the creative culture in general, certainly not in music, because we have this weird idea that business, that making money, like that there's something sleazy or wrong about that. I hope we change that, because negotiating is an incredibly valuable skill. Like, you look at the band Periphery, I'm partners with them on a few different ventures. I've worked with them and their team a lot. The reason the guys in Periphery make a lot of money and are successful in their businesses is because they do all the stuff that I've talked about. Like, first of all, they're really hard, good negotiators. Like Matt and Misha, it is not fun to negotiate with them. I know, because I've done it many times over the years. They will push you hard, and that's good. They should ask for their value. They know what they're worth, and they're not going to sign up for anything unless they're getting paid what they're worth. That's the way we should all be, right? They also do a lot of the work themselves. I have a conference call with them for Getgood Drums, one of the companies that we're partnering, every Thursday at 8 a.m. where we talk about the nitty-gritty details of the business. They don't outsource that to somebody else and just assume that it's taken care of. They do the work themselves. They're very actively involved in all the business affairs of the band, and it pays off because they're willing to do the work. If they want the money, they know they've got to do the work. They're also willing to take on the risk. So they started their own label, 3 Dot Recordings. They're investing in the recording and promotion of everything that label's going to put out. Same thing with Getgood Drums, with Horizon Devices, all these other things that they're involved with. They invest in all these ventures, and maybe sometimes those investments work out, so maybe sometimes they don't. But the point is, they're willing to take on the risk, they're willing to do the work, and they're great negotiators. A Day to Remember is another good example of how you guys might want to think about running your operations as a band. They put out their own albums, they walked away from Victory, and now they self-release their stuff. They have their own studio, the Audio Compound, with my friend Andrew Wade. A Day to Remember also does Self-Help Fest. That is their festival. They've done a handful of these. They've got one coming up here in Detroit. They did one in San Bernardino. Again, they're taking all the risk on here. They've got to pay all those bands. So if the thing sells out, then A Day to Remember is going to do very well. But if 10 people show up to this thing, they lose their ass on that thing. They've got to pay all those bands. Risk, reward, these things go together. So I guess just to wrap it up, to get back to the original point, you see this number, musicians get 12% of the revenue in the music industry, and there's this knee-jerk reaction that somehow this is wrong, that musicians have been screwed, but I don't think that's the case. There's a huge sense of entitlement here. Musicians and artists, creators in general, think they should be getting all the money, but they don't want to do all the work, and they don't want to take on the risk. That's not how the world works, my friends. If you want the money, you got to do the work, you got to take on the risk. So look, guys, if you want the money, go fucking get it. It's there. If you're one of these people who says, I want the fucking money, then you are in the right place. Subscribe to this channel. I'm going to do my very best to give you the tools to do that. I will do my very best to tell you everything that I know about how to run a business so that you can do the same. If you're already subscribed, or for some bizarre, misguided, warped reason you do not want to subscribe, I don't know why you wouldn't want to subscribe, but if that's the case, at least like the video, leave a comment, share it with a friend. Anything you can do to help spread the word would be very, very much appreciated. And with that, I'm going to sign off for now, but I will see you next time.